Get my 6. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid. It is another gloriously beautiful October afternoon here in Central Virginia. We're going to walk up into the forest to see what we may or may not see what we may or may not hear. And I'm going to tell you a story while we do that. But first, I want to show you what I've spent about the last hour and a half doing, okay? All right, guys, here's about 90 minutes worth of work. Did most of it over here with the little Sun Joe manual splitter. It's quite a pile, and this thing won't split anything less than 14 inches, so some of the, or 12 inches I think, so if it was a little bit too short, I just split it over here up with the sledgehammer, 10-pound sledgehammer and a diamond maul. And I'm getting ready to have some lunch here. And after lunch, I'm going to throw it in the truck and haul it up here where I'm starting my other stack. Where as you can see, there's no shade ever there. It's sunlight all day to suck the moisture out of the east end in the AM, suck it out of the west end in the PM. About a year and a half, and this stuff will be ready to burn. It's pretty solid red oak. Okay, guys, so we're going to kind of do a walking and talk here. Remember, get my 6. Look for anything that may be out of the norm up here behind me. Listen, and you know, it used to be we just watch for these large mysterious figures moving in the background, going in and out from behind trees and potentially through portals, but watch for things with wings as well that aren't birds, okay? It's been coming up a lot here in the last few months. So here's a story. And you know, a lot of times when I tell these stories, well, every time I tell these stories, the entire intent and the purpose behind them is to hopefully help someone out there who's going through a similar situation, something I've been in. Here's what I've learned. We're only qualified to give advice on topics with which we have experience. You know, if you come to me and you say, you know, I'm having a problem with my brother. You know, we grew up together. We always fought. We're adults now, and I'd kind of like to get this behind us. I'm going to sit over here so we can watch my 6 a certain direction for a while. And you just say, hey, Crazy Lake, you know, sometimes you give some pretty good real-life advice. How would you recommend my brother and I start getting along better? Well, you know what? I'm not qualified to give you advice in that area because I don't have a brother. I never have. So I don't know. You know, it's like I wrote in the beginning of a short story, one of my short stories from October Nights here recently. Something I've learned in life is to never take parental advice from people that don't have kids. And there's so many people out there that don't have kids that want to tell you how to raise yours. Number 2, never take financial advice from people that don't have money. If they actually were qualified to speak on the topic, they'd probably have some. And I spent time in the financial planning industry, so I'm qualified to speak on that. And then number 3, I learned quickly after the war not to discuss things that happen in war with people who have never been to war for many reasons. And so likewise, if I'm not qualified to give advice on a topic, I don't. But to date, and it's dumbfounding, our most popular, our most watched video on this channel, wow, you see that? Keep your eyes on it and see if it moves. Our most popular video is the one about how to get rid of an annoying neighbor with crayon. It's got like 5.4 million views, and you know, a lot of folks, they comment and they say, wow, that was brilliant, that's great that you figured that out. It's, you know, I think the reason YouTube featured that video is because I was able to take a situation that could have ended up resulting in violence and diffuse it in such a way to where I was able to get rid of this annoying neighbor without becoming violent, and by not, you know, inducing him into violence. So, but most of the comments that we really get about that video are along the lines of, you know, that was great, but my situation's a little different because my, you know, annoying neighbor isn't, you know, like a sociopathically, you know, harassing me in such a way. It's just, you know, this individual is my neighbor. If it weren't for the fact that we live close to each other, I certainly wouldn't have anything to do with them. I want nothing to do with them, but when they see me outside, they have a tendency to come over and, you know, go on and on about their worldviews, their political opinions, criticizing the way I'm doing things, telling me there's other ways to do it and easier ways to do it. How can I get rid of this person? You know, I don't want to be mean. Well, we get that question all the time. And I am qualified to speak on that because I did have a similar situation. I did kind of get rid of an annoying neighbor without a crayon. It took us a while. We moved out into the country to be left the heck alone. I've lived in subdivisions. I've had, next door neighbors, and they see you out, and so they want to come over and chew the fat and twist your ear or whatever. That's why when I had the opportunity, to move out in the country and not have to be in a subdivision and deal with people like that, I did. But the biggest surprise to me, and we've had a lot of people leave this in comments too, a lot of folks who live out in the country, was that not everybody who lives out in the country has a desire to be left alone and gives other people the respect of simply leaving them alone. There's a lot of people, if they see you out, they'll stop by because they think you just went outside for the sole purpose of them stopping by. Or if there's a house where maybe they can see you from theirs, maybe it's only during certain time of the year when the leaves are off the trees and they see you, they'll do that. So I was stuck in one of those situations. It took us a total of almost 3 years of being here before we finally got it established that we live here to be left the heck alone, and we will give everybody else the respect of leaving them the heck alone. When I see somebody out, I don't go harass them, and that's all we want to. We finally got it established. So let me move up the hill a little bit and tell you one situation that took a little bit longer because there was no sociopathy going on. It was an individual, it was a man, and he's the type of person I would never have anything to do with if we just didn't happen to live in close proximity of each other. And even then, I wouldn't, and I chose not to, but he was not one of these individuals that kind of understood these things. So, and you'll understand at the end of the video why this is, why I wouldn't have anything to do with this guy. He's not a bad person at all, by any stretch of the means. He's not a danger. He's certainly not violent and threatening like the individual that I had to run off with the crayon. He's just very negative, very pessimistic, very critical, cynical, judgmental, and that's the type of personality, the type of persona that I've spent a lot of years learning to avoid, and that I choose not to be around at all these days. So if I were to meet somebody like that out in public, say at a football game, maybe we're tailgating in a UVA college football game, and I meet somebody like this, I politely excuse myself and I get out of the situation. Because, and I've said it before, negative mindset, to me, I view that as a disease, and it's contagious. And if you have it, you might be, you're spreading it around if all you're doing is complaining about what you're not happy with. And if you don't have it and you spend too much time with people who are like that, you soon will, because it rubs off. This guy, he didn't come over a lot. It was maybe every 2 or 3 months, and I think it was maybe after he'd had a few adult beverages. And he wouldn't spend a whole lot of time here, maybe 20 minutes. But if I spent 20 minutes around this guy listening to everything that was wrong with the world, how mean his wife was to him, how miserable his life was, I'd feel bad for like a week or two. A lot of that's because I do believe I'm an empath, but also it's because, my friends, the people who I choose to be my friends, the people who I invite to my home and who invite me to theirs, and who I get together with in public for social events or just to have dinner somewhere, they're not like that. I have a wonderful marriage, and this isn't being artificial. I love my wife, she loves me. I treat her like a queen, and she treats me like a king. And sure, we have disagreements, but we don't have arguments. We have conversations in which we work out our disagreements, but we are happy and we have a wonderful relationship. Well, this guy would come over and just always talking about how mean his wife was to him. She was mean, and anytime he tried to talk, she'd tell him to shut up and turn up the television because she didn't want to hear it. And I thought, wow, that's terrible. But I didn't give any advice. I didn't feel it was my place. At first, I thought just maybe this guy needed a sounding board. I've noticed he spends a lot of time alone, doesn't really have any friends, and maybe just when he'd see me out, I was that guy. So I'd listen, and then I'd feel bad for the next week or two. we're about 150 miles away from Virginia Beach, but I'd listened to him talk about how when my son is my age, we're going to be living on oceanfront property because the human race is destroying planet Earth and the polar ice caps were melting. And I'm not downplaying global warming. I know that it's an issue, okay? But I don't think it's such an issue that when my 9-year-old son is 46, he's going to be here in, close to Charlottesville, Virginia, sitting at the beach. I think when he's 46, Virginia Beach is still going to kind of be at Virginia Beach, okay? But we do need to do some things, okay? And these are just examples. And I'd say, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. I do my best to keep my place picked up, and I don't, do anything that I know where I'm knowingly, polluting the world. And I wish more people would be responsible too. Trying to keep it on the positive because, I don't allow my mindset, my thought process to go negative. So this would go on and this would go on. He was complaining about, not, earning any money with his business. Supposedly the guy said he had his own business, but after years of living out here within close proximity, again, I'm observing what goes on around me. It wasn't the case. Dude doesn't do anything. And so I finally, after 3 years, I got rid of the annoying neighbor without the use of a crayon. Guys, you know what I used? A technique that most people hate and are uncomfortable with. I was just kind of honest and instead of telling the guy what I knew he wanted to hear, because I was tired of being a sounding board. I just couldn't take it anymore. I am very happy with my life. I'm very content. I'm grateful for my blessings. I don't focus on what I want. I focus on what I have. And this is something I've trained myself to do. And what I've found that by doing that, by focusing on what I have, I realize I want for nothing. My needs are met. The bills are paid. There's food in the house. We got a couple nickels to rub together every month after we pay whatever bills we have. We are blessed, and I know that. And I've spent a lot of years working very hard to get to this mindset. And no one is allowed to infringe upon me and approach me and just spew 20 to 30 minutes worth of negativity on me because that's how they feel. I do not want people like that in my life, and they're not allowed in my life. So after about 3 years of I couldn't be this guy's sounding board anymore. He comes over because he happened to see me out, and uninvited, never invited him. So he goes on and on about how his wife's how mean his wife is to him. I said, why are you still married? I said, leave her. I said, when she goes, she works every day and she works hard. And I finally started seeing maybe the other side of the story, even though I never really talked to her. Maybe she doesn't want to hear him crying and complaining because she's out there working full time, supporting the household, while he's just watching mainstream news, thinking of all the reasons the world sucks. So I just said, leave her. And he just looked at me like he couldn't believe I said that. I said, dude, when she goes to work one day, pack the bare necessities you need in your car. And when she comes home, don't be there. He's like, what? I can't do that. He says, you say you have a good marriage. What can I? And I said, look, dude, I said, it's different circumstances. And I am qualified to talk about this because I am divorced. I just don't talk about it because it has nothing to do with everything in our past kind of shapes us to get to who we are today. So it does have something to do with what I am today. But let me tell you this. I was married to a woman who was mean to me, and I probably wasn't, in her defense, the nicest to her. It was a relationship that shouldn't have been, but was. It ended, okay? Without going into gory details, because all of us who have been through a divorce could go into gory details. And let me tell you this, today I am exceptionally and exceedingly happy with the marriage I have today. Side story. Around the time I was going through my divorce, it was about 15 or 16 years ago, there was another guy about my age I knew. We met through somebody else, an acquaintance of an acquaintance, but we were both in the same industry. We were both stockbrokers at the time. Same age, dark hair, hazel eyes, kind of looked the same. He worked out. We were pretty physically fit, probably even physical fitness. We ended up talking about divorce because I was telling him I was going through a divorce, and he told me that about a month before, he had gone to one of his friends who was a divorce attorney, and he said, hey, I want buy an hour of your time? And the guy said, why? And he said, well, because I want to talk to you about my situation. My wife's mean to me. She makes me miserable. In her defense, I'm probably not that nice to her because I'm just not happy in my situation. You know, it takes two to tango. And his friend told him, he said, look, the first hour of my time is free. After that, I'm going to start charging you. So he said he went, he talked to this lawyer. And after that hour, he was pretty much convinced that he was going to lose his house, would be lucky to see his kids, was probably going to have, would have to pay child support, and would probably have to pay alimony because he made good money and his wife didn't work. And she had gotten accustomed to a particular lifestyle, and that's just how alimony works. And he said it was too much. He wasn't willing to go through that. And I said, you know, I'm getting ready to go through the same thing, and I know it's going to suck, but we're still young men. I mean, we were like early 30s. I said, what would suck more would to be miserable for the rest of my life. And he said, well, I don't agree with you. And I said, okay, that's great. So I went through my thing. He didn't go through his. You know, I ended up leaving the area for many years. Went off to Iraq in the Army, lived in the Philippines for 6 years, where I met my wonderful, wonderful wife. And you know, we had a lot of issues up front because of the cultural differences, but we ebbed and we flowed, and she was willing to accept parts of my culture that was not parts of hers, so that the relationship could flourish. And I was willing to accept parts of her culture that wasn't parts of mine, so the relationship could flourish. And what was so important to me, which I was so blessed about her culture, is that in the Philippines and most of Asia, family is still the number one most important aspect of their culture. And that's still the most important aspect of my personal culture. And I wasn't finding that where I was looking over here, and so I was fortunate to find it there. Now, I know there's folks like that here, but so anyway, I come back. I run into this guy just a couple years ago. Hadn't seen him in like 15 years. Look, I don't dye my hair, even though it's been suggested I do to hide my grays. I will never do that because just like every line on my face, I've earned every gray hair in my head. I've never had Botox, and I know I've got crow's feet and I'm starting to get jowls, but this is me. This is who I am, okay? I'm 46, okay? So's this other guy. He looks 80, and I'm not exaggerating. His hair is snow white. He looks like he just came out of a coma, and his skin's all pasty pale and wrinkly. And when he walks, it looks like he's making great effort to do so. I didn't recognize him. He recognized me. So we small talked for just a few minutes. And I asked him, I said, hey, just out of curiosity, you still married to so-and-so? And he goes, yeah, we're doing great. And I'm thinking, yeah, probably not so much, bro. You keep telling yourself that. So anyway, I told this other annoying neighbor, you know, this is something, so I was qualified to speak, and I shared with him, you know, I was miserable. I was with a woman that, you know, wasn't so nice to me, and again, I probably wasn't so nice to her because we were miserable. It just wasn't a good fit. Oh, no, I can't do that. Well, I know enough about the situation now to know that, no, he can't do it because then he'd have to maybe work and do something to support himself. And, you know, whatever, not judging, just saying. But this was the truth. And this is the truth he didn't want to hear, and it's the truth he didn't want to come out and confess. Listen, if you're uncomfortable in a situation, if you got a problem, complaining is going to be completely ineffective. You know, I used to have a first sergeant when I was in Iraq, First Sergeant Honeycutt, who, by the way, is now Land Command Sergeant Major of the Washington Army National Guard. This guy's an excellent leader. That's as high as you can go in the enlisted rank, guys, and he's there. He made it to the top. But he used to tell us, he'd say, you know, what's the maximum effective range of a 50 cal? And of course, you know, the answer is if you can see it, you can kill it. And then he'd say, what's the maximum effective range of an excuse? And the first time I heard it, I'm like, I don't know, First Sergeant. He goes, 0 meters, 0 inches, 0 centimeters. If you complain and come up with excuses, you're not going to improve your situation. Now, we'll sit here and watch here for a while, get my 6. You know, I've mentioned it before. I've read Eckhart Tolle. I'm always told I mispronounce his first name. He's a Canadian writer and kind of like a spiritual guide. He says when you're in an uncomfortable situation, you can do 3 things. So let's say it's a marriage in which you feel as if you're being, you know, you're not happy, you're being abused, you want out, or you want things to change. Or any uncomfortable situation. Number 1, you can change a situation, okay? And if you can't change it, if it's something that can't be changed, then number two, you can remove yourself from the situation, okay? That takes great willingness. The first one, it has to be possible. The second one, you've got to be willing, okay? So it's impossible for you to change this, okay? Your wife's always going to tell you to shut up because she doesn't want to hear you complaining about, the polar ice caps melting so quickly that your front yard's going to be beach in 10 years, even though you're 150 miles away from the beach. She's always going to tell you to shut up when you cry about that. Then you can't change that. Then you can remove yourself from the situation by packing your car up one day when she's at work and not being home when she gets back. Now that involves willingness. If you're not willing to do that, then number three, you need to accept it. You need to accept your situation. Okay, I can't change it. I'm not willing to leave, so I've got to accept it as it is. That's all you can do. And I told him that. He says, I can't do anything. I said, well, then you're going to be miserable. You're just going to be miserable. And he didn't like hearing that. So then what was going on? Blaming, I think, the current elected officials for his lack of success. And so I asked him, I said, okay, what about the 8 years before that when it was the opposite side of the coin? How successful were you during that 8-year period? Well, it's just the truth. Listen, people who understand finances, money, and business can make money and be successful in business when the economy's good, when the economy's bad, when Republicans are in office, when Democrats are in office. Because it has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with the understanding of running a business and how finances and economics work. Told him that. Well, yeah. Well, he didn't want to hear it. So, in essence, the conversation, which was 20 or 30 minutes, was no longer me being the sounding board for a toxic individual who wanted to dump his negativity on the guy that he saw as having the good life, so maybe he can help me. And for a time, I thought he did want me to help him, and I tried by maybe offering some advice if I was qualified to speak in the area, if it was something I've been through. But I finally learned that was not it. He just wanted to complain. He wanted to complain. He did like to point out how maybe other people were more successful because they had gotten lucky, because they had knew the right people. No. And I told him that. I said, stop focusing on what that guy's doing or what that guy has, and stop, trying to say he or she has that because they knew the right people or because they got lucky. Focus on what you have. Focus on where you are. Focus on where you want to be and figure out what you've got to do to get there. Stop worrying about the president. Stop worrying about, China. He had a theory why the Chinese economy had something to do with his lack of success. Stop spending your time coming up with excuses for your lack of success. Figure out what you've got to do. Go out there and get the success you want. This is the first time in 3 years I finally just told this guy these things. And he hated hearing every single word of it. And he's not been back. This was 1 year and 3 months ago. And listen, here's the deal. Do I dislike the guy? Absolutely not. I'm indifferent to the guy. I have always been indifferent to the guy. I never liked him, but I never disliked him. That's something else. I can't understand why so few people get this. Just because you might not like somebody doesn't mean you have to dislike them. And I'm going to quote Tupac Shakur again, the rapper who lost his life far too early in life. He was 25 years old. He said, look, just because I don't want you as a friend doesn't mean that I want you as an enemy. I still want you to eat, just not at my table. Nobody could say it better than that. And that's my opinion or my view or my feelings towards this guy. I just don't want him coming back over here ever again, spewing the negativity. And I'm very grateful and thankful that he hasn't. So my point to this is, and again, it goes back to so many people. 5.4 million people have seen that video. I see it. Keep your eyes on it. Yep, it's turning a little bit. Let's see if it walks away. Wow. It actually started walking down the hill. Let's see if we can pick it back up. Is that it? 5.4 million people have watched that video, and tens of thousands of them have asked, the question that I just kind of answered. Sometimes it's not as cut and dry as leaving a witty, a witty note on a crayon where, a sociopathic stalker will see it and become scared of legal repercussions if they continue to be sociopathic stalkers. But what I have found is kind of cut and dry is if you just kind of call people on their crap and don't let it go on. The mistake I made, and I was never mean when I called him on his crap, and I was brutally honest, because that wasn't my intentions to be mean. It was just to let this person know, hey, look, if you think that I believe your excuses for a minute, I don't. I've just been being polite at best because we live in close proximity of each other. But the truth is, I know the truth. I know you just don't work. I know your wife really supports you. And I know you're not going to leave because I've seen through my own eyes you really don't have the ambition, the drive, the initiative, or the work ethic to kind of get out there and support yourself. So, Eckhart Tolle, you can't change a situation, you're not willing to leave, and you're having a hard time accepting it. That's not my problem. So don't bring it over here and treat me like it is. And that was a very negative energy that I'm very happy to have removed from my life. And again, I did it simply by being brutally honest, not brutal. I was respectful. I didn't cuss this man because that's not who I am. But guys, sometimes you got them whiny babies that come around and just bring you down. Call them out on their crap. Be honest with them. Let them know you're not there to be their sounding board. And what you'll find is they'll go find another sounding board. They'll find someone else they think they can snow for a while, and they're thinking they actually want to change their circumstances. But it won't be you, okay? It won't be you, so you won't have to be subjected to that negativity. So, with that said, I hope you come back this evening. We're going to do another reading from October Nights, 31 Tales for the Halloween season, available in print and Kindle. By the way, Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Volume 5 is very much in the works. Completed one of the other stories for it this morning before coming out and splitting that wood. I'm going to stack that wood, going to have some lunch, and I'm going to go back to work on that and come out here tonight and read you a story from October Nights. So as always, I appreciate each and every single one of you for being here. See you for more next time.